Arnold and Roberto Firmino, and we know in particular just how important those two players are. So yeah, it was much more like it, much better, and it puts Liverpool in a much better position. I think if they were going to go on and go into a little bit of a run, obviously West Ham's a difficult game at the weekend, Brighton to come, Manchester City, Leicester, they had to really put in a performance tonight. So to do that, to play as well as they did and to get the 3 points, yeah, so much better than what it has been of late.
And it seemed, Theo, that through the afternoon, whispers about Fabinho not going to be involved and being injured, and then Tottenham seemingly scoring inside their first 3 minutes, that actually things were all sort of written. The script was written for another poor night for Liverpool, but VAR to the rescue. How long we've been waiting to say that this season, and we'll touch on the centre-backs in a bit, but Liverpool making sure that, as Matt said, they started this run of fixtures in the best possible way.
Yeah, I had the feeling coming into this one that it would be a game where they could turn it around, because despite dull groans after the United Cup game, they were a lot better in that match. They were very unlucky to lose. And it seems like in recent weeks when Liverpool have been dropping points, it's when all their rivals were picking up results, overtaking them or catching up. Whereas this midweek, we've seen United lose, we've seen Everton and Leicester draw. It was a big opportunity for Liverpool to send out that statement and say, we're still here, we're still part of the talk. And they've gone out and put in a great performance. Yeah, Spurs could have been 1-0 up inside the opening minutes, but when you have VAR there, you can see it's clearly offside. And they didn't let it get them down. There was no slip in confidence or anything. They just kept on going. And they put in a performance we've been calling out for weeks now. It's pretty much how for a month we've been saying everyone's out of form. All the front three are playing badly. The fullbacks aren't playing well. But today it's Firmino played well. Trent Alexander-Arnold played well. Players that you've been looking to step up. And then he's just like, well, Mohamed Salah was great. Sadio Mane, if it wasn't for VAR, he gets a hat-trick assist and a goal. Thiago Alcantara is more involved. James Milner, Jordan Henderson, you can just go on. It was the performance Liverpool needed. And in this season, when it is going to be so inconsistent with teams able to beat anyone, you need to make sure you're getting your points against your rivals, against your big teams. And at the start of this run, it's exactly what Liverpool put down.
Yeah, definitely. Keep sharing your views with us on Facebook or YouTube, wherever it is you are joining us live for this edition of The Debrief here on Blood Red. But Matt, Bobby Firmino, he's coming for a bit of stick in recent weeks, especially whilst Liverpool have been struggling to score goals. But he was the man who got it all started right on half-time, and not only got the goal, he was brilliant throughout the piece.
Yeah, I mean, you're right to say he's coming in for a bit of criticism, and rightly so, because he's been far from his best. But tonight he deserves all the praise in the world, because we know that when he plays well, Liverpool tend to play well, and he just sort of did his best thing. It was almost a comparison, wasn't it, heading into the match between him and Harry Kane and the sort of roles that they play. I think Harry Kane has evolved into a player who does that Firmino role, but tonight Firmino put down a bit of a marker, I think, and showed him exactly how to do it. I know, obviously, Harry Kane was only on the pitch for the first half, but Firmino just did that role and did it to his absolute best. We thought going into this run of games, obviously, Liverpool are playing at a slightly better standard of teams. You think that, that might have suited Firmino, and the early signs are that is the case, because Tottenham didn't exactly throw players forward. They didn't, put loads and loads of players in front of the ball or do anything silly tactically like that. But he just found a few more spaces, managed to sort of orchestrate the passing a little bit better, and making the right decisions for the first time in a little while. So yeah, it was great to see. And we know that when you've got a Firmino who's fit and fully firing, that then brings into play the other players around him. And that's the beauty, isn't it, of Roberto Firmino through the middle. When he's at his best, the players around him are at their best as well. So yeah, there was a fair few chances, I thought, in that first half. Liverpool didn't quite manage to get themselves over the line right until Firmino at the end of the first half. But second half, they took those chances. I think they probably should have had one or two more. Certainly the VAR, the handball for Firmino, I thought was pretty harsh. But yeah, the performance was much better. And it's no surprise that comes at a time when Roberto Firmino has stepped up massively. And look, I've been as big a critic of him as anybody over the last few weeks, because, as I say, he's been absolutely miles off it. So it's only right that when he puts in a performance like that, you sing his praises, because he was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, as Matt said there, Theo, it didn't really seem as though Liverpool were in the need of gifts in that game. They did seem to be firing on all cylinders, but Hugo Lloris did give Trent Alexander-Arnold a gift right at the start of that second half. And like Firmino, he's come in for criticism, but on a night where he gets a goal and an assist, only right to praise Trent, because as much as Joe Rodon perhaps made that error for Sadio Mane's goal, it was an absolutely fantastic ball put into the box.
Yeah, Joe Rodon doesn't make that error if the crossing from Trent isn't as good as it is. And it was a much improved performance from him. Like Firmino, we've been criticising him a lot in recent weeks. With Trent, he's not been at the same standards. He'll know that. And it's been tough for him when they've had injuries in pre-season. I think Jurgen Klopp said he had COVID in pre-season as well. And it feels like he's been playing catch-up the whole way through. He started to find a bit of form before getting injured against Manchester City. It's just not happened for him since he came back. But this is the performance you can see from Trent. You know that it's what he can do. We've had a number of games recently where it's doing all the stats, or we put in however many crosses, we didn't find a man with any of them, or we gave the ball away more than any other player on the pitch. Yeah, that can happen when you put in so many balls and you're so creative. But when you get it right, like he did today, it is just sensational to watch. His passing when he's on form is probably one of the best in the Premier League. And he's a player that did need to find a bit of form at a good time for Liverpool. And I think there was always a feeling it was just a blip for him. Like, it's easy to forget considering how long he's been around and what he's already achieved. He's still very young. And players do go through these ups and downs. I wrote a piece only a few weeks ago how Steven Gerrard did a similar thing at a similar age. He had his worst spell of his Liverpool career, and then he was just amazing for the next 10, 15 years. So hopefully that's Trent's little blip out the way and he can be great for 10, 15 years now. But you wanted him to put that statement down. A goal that I think it's his first of the season. It doesn't matter if it's a gift. He's got that finish, put a smile on his face. You can see how much it meant to him. And he's not got the assists he's had in previous seasons. He's a few behind Andy Robertson. That's one on the mark. They can start catching up there and see if he can win their bet for what would be the third year running.
Yeah, you've got the second half of the season to come. Don't write Trent off just yet. But let's get on to centre halves. It's the elephant in the room. We must address it. I'm sure tomorrow's Blood Red podcast is going to discuss this at length. But we knew before the game, of course, Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez are long-term injuries. Fabinho missing from the start and Joel Matip off at half-time. Matt, I make that no senior centre halves left now. Surely they've got to act.
Surely. I don't think they will, but they surely have to. I mean, look, it's one of those, isn't it? I don't think the Joel Matip injury really changes anything, because I think you could probably have predicted that, to be honest. It's, as somebody said this week, it's news when he's fit rather than news when he's injured, isn't it? It's just one of those things that you just know it's going to happen. So the Joel Matip one, I don't think changes anything massively. The big one is Fabinho, isn't it? It'd be interesting to see what Jurgen Klopp has to say on that tonight, whether they know exactly how bad it is. He does have a habit, of course, of saying these things are only minor, which is what he said in the build-up to the game, and then suddenly we don't see them for 4 or 5 weeks. I think he said something similar about Trent Alexander-Arnold earlier this season. So, yeah, I think if Fabinho is out, obviously that changes things for me. I think Liverpool have to, well, to be honest, I thought they had to do something anyway, but it certainly means that they have to do something if he is out for a certain period of time. But yeah, if it's only a short-term one, I wouldn't have thought that really changes too much for them, to be honest. I think if he's out for a couple of games, they'll probably go with it. Again, it's a massive risk. I mean, there's only so many times you can say it, isn't there? We've written so many times, we've said it so many times on podcasts. It is a gamble, and this, I think, is the proof as to why it's a gamble, because if you have one more injury, that could be it for Liverpool. Having said that, I thought Jordan Henderson did really well. I thought in the second half, Nat Phillips did really well as well. But, Tottenham didn't offer a great deal. They were without Harry Kane. They couldn't really get the ball to Heung-min Son, so it could have been very, very different. So, look, it's always been the same. It's been the same for the whole month for me. Liverpool really, really do have to sign a centre-back. But, yeah, just because of what has happened tonight with the injuries, I don't necessarily think that they will change their mind.
Yeah, we've had a few comments on screen, Theo, about the race being on 11 o'clock on Monday, 11 p.m. That is, on Monday is the transfer deadline. Is that the race everyone's on about? It's not the league title, is it? It's the race to sign a centre-back.
You tell me. You're the one reading these comments. Easy, isn't it? Maybe a centre back's going to be the difference in the title race. It's a tricky one to call because if Liverpool do want to go and get a centre back, they've still got the limitations of if it's an overseas player, they need to either not register a player, give up on Virgil van Dijk being back this season, or need to sell someone. So it would have to be a homegrown player, and then who's available, who can be adequate option. Whether you play the long-term game on it, you're not going to get someone who is going to be a long-term signing. So it would just be a case of sticking with the kids and hoping they can keep on improving, and you've got them for the future. But for me, just give up on Joel Matip now. It's happened too many times. This is a season when Liverpool needed him most, and it's when he's let them down most. Dejan Lovren dropped down the pecking order because he wasn't available. He'd always have this run of games, and I think it was 10 games in a row. He could never get to that figure. He'd always break down with injuries and be unavailable. He's not had that run from Zenit, as far as I'm aware. And Joel Matip is always breaking down, getting injured, and it's too much now. Liverpool cannot rely on him. He does not offer enough to be part of this squad as a third choice, a second choice centre back. And then you look at what is in the squad. For me, Nat Phillips now has to be first choice with these options, not because he's the most gifted player there, but because he's the one who can actually defend. He's the defender who can defend. He needs to start the games. It doesn't matter whether you think Reece Williams has got more potential, Billy Kmetio's got more potential, Jordan Henderson's playing well, Fabinho's playing well. He is the defender. And it is so important for a defence to have consistency, to have the same names, the same bodies in, week out. It's why Liverpool's defence has not been as effective this year. It's why Alisson is making mistakes, because he has no faith in the back four in front of him, because it changes on a weekly basis. So you need that consistency. And Nat Phillips is the only one you can rely on at the moment, whether it's next to a Henderson, a Matip for one game you can play in every month, or a Fabinho. And then it's, well, you look at who is available. There isn't anyone. There's no one in who's British who you can say they are going to be a quality option on a free transfer. You're going to have to look at loan market. Well, Tomori would have been a good loan signing, but Chelsea would never let you have him. So you've got to look further down the vision. It's just too limited. I think if Liverpool were going to sign a centre-back, they'd have signed it weeks ago, wouldn't they? They'd known Van Dijk's out. They'd known Gomez is out. They know who their targets are. And for whatever reason, they cannot get one of them now. It's not the Liverpool way to look for a stopgap. It would be a free agent in 2-3 weeks' time after the window's closed. If they get another injury, this is what they're stuck with for now. You've just got to hope that Jordan Henderson doesn't get injured again, because then it really is two kids at centre-back.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's emphatically answered that one. Let's finish off then, Matt. On a positive note, James Milner getting through his first full 90 minutes in the Premier League since the 3-0 win over Leicester in November. Turned 35 at the beginning of this month, but was an absolute colossus in that midfield tonight for the Reds.
Yeah, absolutely superb. I think he's an absolute must in there. If Jordan Henderson's not there, I think you have to go with him at the moment. Obviously, there's no Van Dijk. There's a loss of leadership across the team for Liverpool, but the performance that he put in tonight, it's not a shock. I think that was his 550th Premier League appearance tonight, and we know exactly what he brings to the table every single time. Is full effort, full determination. He's not got the passing range of Thiago. He's not got the sort of abilities to keep hold of the ball in the same way that someone like Gini Wijnaldum does, but he's every bit as important as each of them, and I think he was almost the outstanding player for Liverpool tonight. I think there's a few different performances to pick out, but I think the fact that Henderson wasn't in midfield, it was absolutely vital that Jurgen Klopp had Milner in there, and he's just one of those players, isn't he? He's just Mr. Consistent, and yeah, as you say, to be able to do that at the age of 35, to be putting in those tackles, to be all over the pitch. He's not got the best pace. We know that. We know that his skills on the ball are maybe not as clever and as technical as one or two other players. But yeah, for me tonight, he was absolutely superb. And